Did you just get ghosted? What to do when a client doesn't pay up on this edition of the DV Show.
We're on a mission to rid the world of bad video.
Bye-bye.
This is the DV Show.
Target in range.
Bad video sucks.
Welcome to this edition of the DV Show podcast. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining us. We have a great podcast for you this week, hopefully solving the age-old issue of a client not coughing up the goods. You know, that client who refuses to pay you after all of that video work that you did. So I know freelancing in the video production world does have its perk. But one of the downsides is that risk that one client won't pay on time and is seemingly unreachable. You know the one. Now, in the dating world, when someone stops calling and seems to have fallen off the radar completely, it's referred to as ghosting. And as you can imagine, getting ditched by last night's dinner date is disappointing, but it isn't nearly as traumatic as being ghosted by a client you've spent a lot of time with and did lots of work for, but suddenly decides to go poof and disappears on you, which is not cool. Now, today's guest is Dee Bowden. She teaches small business owners how to reconcile, resolve, and recover old and owed invoices to improve their cash flow. Now, she just came out with a brand new book called Collect the Cash, which is a great resource for anyone who needs a strategy to deal with that ghosting client.
So Collect the Cash is my journey to all your listeners. So first of all, let me just say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everybody who's listening to this fabulous conversation around the world. I'm Dee Bowden. I'm the founder of VCS Solutions. And so thanks to my buddy, I get to talk about Collect the Cash to all of the business owners that are out here who may eventually run into that little challenge of what had happened was and how come I didn't get paid? Because regardless of what you do and whatever line of business you're in, eventually you run into that customer who says, I'm going to pay you, or I'm not going to pay you, or what had happened was I have the situation and the reason I can't pay you is. And so my journey, my book, and we all have it. We all have had it.
It's big time in this industry, believe me.
It's big, and exactly. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I know that when you perform a product or service, like when you make a video, when you do services for anybody, you expect them, when you have the conversation, you have the contract, we're going to do this, I'm going to bill you, you're going to pay me, life is grand. It's that part when they bill you and then they don't pay you, is that part. So that's what I deal with. I deal with what had happened was how come you didn't get paid. And so Collect the Cash is the journey of me working for, although it wasn't a video company, it was a small IT company, but they were still, regardless, they still sold IT services, software licenses, etc. They had $8 million worth of sales on the books, not in the bank. Wow. I got hired as a part-time collector. They're like, hey, Dee, welcome aboard. Here's your cubicle, and here's your box, here's your plant. We need you to get to work and collect this $8 million. So I literally said a short prayer, got my clue, and I figured out the business-to-business collections, regardless of what industry you're in, it's three things. It's problem solving, number one. Number two, it's an extension of customer service. And number three, as you see above my head, it says gratitude. I personally believe that when you stop and say thank you to the people who take your phone calls, who help you figure out how come you haven't gotten paid, and the most important part, when they make sure your check actually gets cut, you absolutely need to go back and tell them thank you, because they don't have to go into the weeds to help you get paid, because that's not their responsibility. But I'm talking about this more from a corporate standpoint, but regardless of whether it's corporate or another AP person, when the person helps you get your check, go back and say thank you. And I've learned over the years of doing this, when you go back and say thank you, it makes for goodwill and good business. And then people are like, oh yeah, hey, that person actually said thanks. Next time there's an issue, they're going to remember you versus somebody else who actually, just took their check and just kept it moving.
Really? So is it hard to say thank you? I mean, so we're talking to creative professionals here, right? If you don't, for me personally, I represent a good majority of my audience, my age, my demographic. Somebody doesn't pay me, I am no longer going to work with you. Right. So that's how we are in this industry. So saying thank you after they finally pay us after so long is very hard.
I understand that, but see, and I guess that's because, in my world of dealing with government agencies and corporations and medium-sized companies and small, it's a principle that I've learned, and it's something that I've used across a slew of industries. I haven't had the privilege of dealing with video industry yet, but it's just something that I've learned is that when you drill it down, you do business with another person. Just like you and I are having this conversation, we both are business owners, but we're still people. And the first thing I said to you was, thank you for the opportunity to be a guest on your show. I just started off the show with that conversation by saying thanks.
That's awesome.
It's just a principle. And it's just something that I think we forget as business owners, that, we're always, chasing the next sale, the next contract, the next project, which we're supposed to. But at the end, here's a better, at the end, there's a better way of saying this. Most of us who just came through the holiday season, if you got a holiday card, a Christmas card, whatever, some of the people that you do business with wrote you a note. They said, thank you for doing business with us. Thanks for being a customer.
Yes.
That's all I'm talking about. It's that part. They do an extension of customer service by saying thank you, because they want to make sure that they are top of mind for you as you come into the new year. And as you keep going throughout the year and going, okay, am I going to stay into business with them? Did I even get a car for them? Do they even acknowledge me as a customer? No, I'm serious. You laugh, but I'm serious.
Yeah. I hear you.
True, right? Because
it's true. It's like I'm kind of laughing because this is true stuff, right? And most people don't apply this or even know this. Right, and that's why it's so important we have this conversation, because that's why this is like one of my three principles. It's like, customer, problem solving, number one, the what had happened was, and then the customer service. And then the gratitude thing, like I said, the holiday season was perfect. It was a perfect example, because I looked up and I'm like, you get these cards. They say, thank you for being a customer. We hope you and the family are doing well, and that you continue to do business with us in the following new year. Happy New Year, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just caught that. I'm like, you know what? That's so cool, because that's how they distinguish themselves. That's how they become top of mind. Because you're like, oh, the next time I'm thinking of buying, video equipment, or I need a new microphone, a new camera, whatever. So-and-so sent me a card. You know what? I still have that card. Let me go find their contact and go call them and chit chat. They'd be like, yeah, that's awesome.
And it's true.
Yes, it is. It's very true, and very hard with creative individuals. So very, very, very follow-up customer service is very hard sometimes in the creative world. So we always have to be reminded of that. So that's good stuff. So that's a very, very thick book. I mean, from what I could see in the video, you have that book is like super thick. So you got a lot going on in there.
Well, I have a lot. I have a lot going on, but it's actually it looks thicker than it is in the video, but it's a short story. It's short stories, and it's basically principles. It's like, the fortune is in the follow-up. One of the things you have to do in business, you have to follow up, regardless of what you sell. You got to follow up. And then there's the whole thing about gratitude, and then there's for those of you that are sports fans, you'll get to learn about my sports analogy, but you have to get the book in order to do that.
Oh, come on. Come on.
I can't give you everything. No,
You're going to throw a tease out there and then not think we're going to bite right now? Come on, D.
No, you might not bite right now, but you will eventually. But yeah, I do a pretty cool sports analogy about why, how collections and mindset and especially whoever your favorite team is, whoever they are, when you follow them. So, okay, let's take Boston. So you have the Patriots, Red Sox, the Bruins, the Celtics, and then the New England Revolution. Whoever you follow.
Very good, by the way, for being away for so long. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So one of the things you notice about your favorite players, they always are in the zone. If you see them, they usually have headsets on, or earphones in their head. They're listening to music, or they're preparing themselves mentally. Well, I kind of talk about, I'll give you just a little bit. I talk about the getting into the collection zone for what do you have to do to get yourself ready to go get your money. And I use the sports analogy, so you feel like, oh, I get it. Because if your favorite player has to get prepared to get into the game, well, you have to quote get into the game to get your money.
That's right.
Thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, that was a good enough tease.
Right.
I have to say that was good enough. So I know in the video production world, I can think of an example right now of a video professional who owns his own business. He makes a cool, I don't know, 120,000 a year, right? Solo. He does it solo. He has freelancers that help him out. $120,000 a year, and maybe he gets I don't know, 35% of that because he does a lot of the work and he doesn't get paid. So he's a great example of a person who runs a business who does all the work, but doesn't know how to collect or doesn't know how to go out there and get his money, so to speak. So I had a whole podcast about this a couple of years back where I kind of mentioned you shouldn't even be in this situation to begin with, right? You shouldn't even be in that situation where you have a client who doesn't pay you. I mean, there's qualifying in the beginning. There's, making sure that they have money up front to pay half, maybe up front, not, and kind of not go to that point where they don't pay you at all. Do you discuss this at all in your book?
Absolutely.
You do?
And
Okay.
I do. And one of the things I talk about is that you absolutely need to have an agreement. You have to have some kind of a contract that says, it could be a one pager, basically, the name of your company, what are you providing for them, the service or the product, when you're supposed to deliver it to them, that they absolutely need to give you a deposit of some sort, and then you deposit, then you do something, then you invoice them, then you get paid. It's no different than, like for painters. When they come to your home, when they come to your house, and they first thing they do is hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. They have a walk around, and then they have a quote, and then they tell you we're gonna paint 3 rooms and it's gonna be this. Yeah. And then they give you the quote and they tell you, before we can get started, we have to draw up an agreement or something. And then basically we don't start painting until you give us a deposit. And then you go along, and then they say, okay, the next payment is due here, the next payment is due here. And then it's really simple. They'll stop painting. They'll stop working.
It's true.
If you don't pay them. Well, in the same vein, and I get this, and this is what I was saying about, B2B collections or business collections is not the sexy part, because nobody wants to have this conversation.
No.
But you're not in business, you're not doing charity work. You're in business. You had an agreement. You said, I need these video services. I agreed. We drew up an agreement. You said I can make money deposit here. We're going to film, let's say, 3 sessions. And then you said, fine, the 3rd session, I make my next payment. Here's the thing. Sometimes if I personally believe this, if you can't make your payment, I believe what you can do is get on the phone and say, hi, John, or hi, David, or who you're talking to. Listen, I've run into a problem. I can't pay everything right now, but what I want to honor the contract and tell you, I don't have everything right now, but will you accept this? You can make an adjustment to the contract and say, okay, I can't receive all the money, but I can do this, and then document it so that both people know, yep, you were supposed to pay me here, you didn't, but you're going to honor this, and you're going to pay me so much here. I'm expecting the payments to be coming through. Most people, at least I'm old school, we used to do it this way. You had a conversation. You didn't just blow people off.
That's right.
You don't just blow people off. At least I'm of the mindset of this. Some money is better than no money, and you don't ruin the relationship by just not saying anything. I think, and that's the part where most people are like, oh, I hate doing that. Well, I know, I understand you hate doing it, but don't lose your customer. Don't ruin your relationships by not taking responsibility and saying something. Most people will be like, they'll be irritated. Yeah, because they have, of course, think about it. They do this work. They're expecting to get paid. They've already got plans for their money. They've got this bill to pay. They've got things to do as well. But I think if they know already that they can't pay their bills until you pay them, but you're gonna honor the commitment and make a payment and plan to follow up, most people will work with you on that. Now, if this keeps happening, that's a cash management issue that needs to be addressed. It's like, no, we won't. I might do it with you one time. The second time, no, we're gonna make adjustments. I have to have half up front. We're going to pause this, or you have to give me everything up front, or at least 75% of it up front, and then we'll do this, and I'll get the last 25% when I deliver you the video or whatever it is.
Yes, that must be. I mean, collections must be very hard for like a service-based industry. Like for us in the video world, we have the goods, right? If you don't pay us, you're not going to get the final product. So, exactly. If, like in a service, that's tough. That must be hard. I mean, do you discuss that, like workarounds with that too? I mean, the service thing, the example I just gave is definitely it's for product or services. I mean, if you have products and people aren't been able, you don't get your product until you pay in full. With services, you actually basically you pause it. You have a deposit, you have a contract, you have a deliverable. When are you supposed to deliver it? When are you supposed to get invoiced, and when are you supposed to get paid? If you're tracking that information and you see that that's not happening, there has to be an interrupt. You're like, no, we can't continue the service until you actually pay, or at least have a conversation and say, okay, we can't pay everything. Will you accept the partial payment? And here's what I'll do to make good on this. Is it always easy? No. And do most people like having that conversation? Absolutely not. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's hard.
Good.
It's hard. It's very, very hard. So I know a guy. I also know a guy who runs he's a chef. He's a chef, right? He's a chef.
Yep.
And he does catering for, executives who are single, who can't cook for themselves. They're working 50 hours a week. So on Sundays, he prepares all the week's meals for these clients. And at the end of the week, he expects to get paid, but they already ate all of his food. So
well,
that's tough to get your money on that one.
Well, it shouldn't be, but I'll say this: if that's the route he's going, sometimes these lessons are painful lessons. That sometimes it's like you have to lose some money first before you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do that again. So
that's right.
To the executive chef, it would be okay, before you prepare another set of meals. Number one, do you have your agreement set up, and then are you swiping a credit card? So you're at least getting either all of your money up front or half of it, and then before you deliver everything, you're getting payments. Because some of this is not that difficult, only because you can structure this, that you have your contract, you have your payment, and you don't deliver anything until it's done in full. Secondly, most people just don't like having this conversation because it's like, man, it took me so long to get this customer. I understand. Trust me, I get that. I don't want to see you lose your customer, but I don't want to see you keep losing your shirt either and not get paid. And I think you have to take responsibility. Either you take responsibility or you have somebody else who, if that's not your land of genius, then you have to find somebody who can come alongside you and say, okay, listen, you don't do well at asking people for money. Let me do that part, because that's my gift. You go cook. You go cook and be in your lane, or you go make videos and be in your lane, and let me do this. Because also, one of the things that for me is, I understand the art and science of building relationships. I mean, you have to build a relationship in order to get the business. Especially today, that's something that you need to glue. That's the glue of business today is a relationship. That's how it works. It's always been. But here's the thing. You know what? It's always been that way. I think right now that social media has put it on blast. And unfortunately, we old school. If we had an issue, most of the time it was, you grabbed a cup of coffee or you grabbed a drink or whatever, and you talked it out and you figured out, okay, what's wrong? Let's solve this. Now I feel like people don't sit down and talk. I feel like people are too quick to grab their phone, do a quick Facebook Live, go put you on blast, and just ruin your reputation. And I'm old enough to know that reputation, your name was everything. We were talking about where we're both from in Boston. I mean, my last name is Bowden, so I was I'm the Bowden's kid. I couldn't go anywhere. Oh, in my neighborhood, somebody aren't you so and so's kid? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And you're branded. Absolutely. And a quick phone call before I could get home to tell my side of the story. What had happened was this is what it's like. Mom, Dad, no, I don't want to hear it. Someone so caught. It's like no. And then our reputations today, companies, whether small, medium, or large, are constantly looking at their brand and customer service. And why do you think you constantly get these surveys? They always, they have a survey about, how did things go? What could we improve on? What didn't you like the least? What did you like the best? Well, why are they doing that? Because they're looking at how can they improve your customer experience. That's what everybody's doing, whether you're a solopreneur or whether you're a major corporation. How do you improve the customer experience? Well, if one part of the customer experience is that I'm not getting paid on a regular basis, that's right. Don't sleep on that, because that part is just as important as you doing the service. It's just as important. That's awesome. In my case, I think it's more. That's awesome. I want to buy this book. Okay. But, you're on the podcast now, so maybe I can get it for free. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. You got some good stuff. So how can we find your book, D? Where is it? Is it on Amazon? It'll be on Amazon, but you get it from me directly, and you actually get an autographed copy. So wow. Yep, absolutely. You go to www.collectthecash.biz/book. That's www.collectthecash.biz/book. You actually get a signed copy from me personally. Wow, this is good stuff. So to sum it up, this book is basically a way to get your money, the nice way. The nice way. Yep. which we need in this industry, D. Believe me, we need it. So it comes at a good time.
For additional tips, tutorials, and to get your video questions answered, visit thedvshow.com.
Stay on the cutting edge with The DV Show.